What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be covering a very sought out topic. The decades old argument. Should you go to school for photography? Is it even worth getting a photo/art degree? Or would you be better off using that time and those resources, investing in yourself and getting a degree from the YouTube University or a master course from your favorite photographer. I'm gonna be bringing on a very old friend of mine, an amazing photographer, Sonia, NRG Visuals. I've known her from pretty much when I started, and not only is her work great, but she's also gonna bring in a very unique perspective that I can't offer in this video. She attended photo school and she got a degree in photography, and she can better give you a better understanding of what that's like, and in her opinion, how it went for her, and if she would recommend it. For me, I had a little bit of a different perspective, and it's an interesting one too, because I actually got to see kind of both sides of the coin. When I first went to school, I committed. I was D1 and I went to school in Baltimore, but it was a very private, small, PWI as they call it, and I was studying psychology with a minor in Italian. I wanted to do drawing, but it didn't count as a requisite. So I got into it and I took a few photography courses. Pretty basic, but the film one was very good. The first time I got my hands in the studio, stuff like that. And then I left that school. I had surgery, I stopped swimming, all that, and I moved to Italy for a little bit, but then I moved down to Florida again, and I went to FAU, like a big state school. But at that point, I was studying art. I was an art major with the intent of studying photography, but because of requisite stuff, they wouldn't let me start doing photography courses for like 3 years until the wall was there. So I did a bunch of other art courses, and it was marvelous, but I wasn't able to do photo courses. And then I dropped out and moved to New York and started interning and assisting and all that stuff, and built my career from there. But I'll save more of the details until we get into this conversation with NRG Visuals. One more thing before I do that. If you're new to the channel, my name is Gabriel Perez Silva. I'm a fashion and celebrity photographer based out of New York City. Here's some of my work. Hopefully you enjoy this video. Check out a ton of other videos I have on my channel. I think you'll find at least one you like, but there's some very good ones. And now let's get back into the video.
Hi, I'm Sonia. I also go by Energy. I'm a photographer based in Brooklyn. I do a lot of portraiture, commercial, editorial stuff. I shoot a lot on film. I do some video and directing and etc.
I'm gonna be adding some of your images, some of your work here for everybody to check out as well.
Amazing.
That'd be a good idea to come on here today and talk about our different experiences, getting into the world of that we work in, photography and history and all that. Because I know you went through the school route and I went through the kind of self-taught route, and maybe we can kind of give people our unique perspectives on that.
Yeah.
Where did you go to school? Because I know I met you in Florida, but were you going to school in that time we met?
Yeah. So I went through like 4 different undergrad universities. I went through a lot of phases.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, my photography education begins in high school, because my high school in Florida had a magnet, and I was in the photography magnet there. Although I didn't think back then I was going to be a photographer, I thought I was going to be a basketball player. I thought I was going to play in Europe and stuff, and I didn't really put that much thought into doing photography, but I enjoyed it a lot. So I was in the magnet for photography. So that's where my first passion and love for it was kind of brewing. We were working in the dark room, shooting film, having shows, and I was working on projects back then that now I look back on and I was like, you were doing cool stuff back then, but I wasn't conscious of it. Like, one of my photos won a lot of awards in undergrad, and went to travel to a whole bunch of galleries internationally, and that was a big thing, but I didn't think of that because I thought I was going to play basketball. So when I went to college, my first college I went to was in Boca. I went to Lee University, and
Was it
I actually
FAU?
No, Lynn. It's called Lynn University.
Yeah.
Basically, it's a university for people who didn't pass any tests. Like I didn't pass the ACTs or the SATs. I'm not a good test taker, so it's one of those schools that goes by your GPA. Which
Wait,
I
what do
had a
you
good
mean you
GPA.
pass? It's not. It's
Huh?
like, isn't it like just by like you don't pass it or fail it? It's just like different grade levels, isn't it?
The grade level is so low that no actual normal university would have actually accepted me.
Uh,
And also, I thought I was going to be playing basketball, and I had some scholarships, and then I did my physical, and my scholarships were pulled away. So then I had to like kind of refigure out my career route in like 17 years old. So then I went to that college, and I actually started my major with international business because I was like, I like business, whatever. Like, my family's in business, so like maybe I'll do that. And I ended up taking 6 business classes, and my elective was photography. And that one semester, I realized I never want to look at a single number again, besides if it's a paycheck for me. And I wanted to do photography. So then I transferred to NYU for a semester. I did a semester at Tisch. And I went abroad. I went to London and I studied film, like motion pictures in London for a semester as well. And then after London, I came back to Miami and I went to the University of Miami. But my degree from there, I have a dual degree. My main degree is in communications in creative advertising, and my secondary degree is in studio art with a concentration in photography. And I also got a minor in film. And then I came to New York and I got my master's,
where did you get your master's?
SVA, School of Visual Arts.
And that's like photography.
Yeah, they do visual stuff. I got accepted for my master's to either Parsons or there. And based on my research, Parsons was more of a design school and SVA was more of a photo school. So I ended up going there. I have regrets. I should have went to Parsons, but I did get my
I mean, dude, I've heard SVA is really good. Like during the pandemic, when I wanted to get more comfortable with like studio lighting, I signed up for like individual courses. I
yeah,
signed
yeah,
up at SVA, but like I was really excited about it. But they ended up canceling it because
a low enrollment.
because of the pandemic.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but that's pretty crazy. So how were you able to like get from Lynn to NYU though?
I basically just showed portfolio and applied, and they let me in for the semester. But I was kind of homesick, and then I also like applied for a semester abroad, so I ended up going there. And while being abroad, I decided to come back to Miami, to University of Miami. I had a partner at the time that lived also in Miami, so we kind of just wanted to, I guess, stay in the same city because she was going to college there as well. So that was that, and then I went to UM, and but NYU was intense. I took predominantly lighting classes there, so I learned a lot of my in studio lighting stuff there. But the thing is what I wanted to go to college for. I didn't want to just study photography. I wanted to take courses in different subjects. And when you go to NYU in your concentration, you kind of really take predominantly courses in that. While at UM, I took a lot of marketing and advertising and writing classes and film classes and just in general like history classes and international relations classes, like classes, things that other subjects I was interested in that I wanted to take. UM kind of allowed me to do that, and I ended up getting a dual degree because of my past background in all the schools.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting because when I went to FAU for that art semester I did,
Yeah.
when I was like living in Florida again, what's it called? I didn't take any photography courses because they wouldn't let me because of requisites. Like it would have been like years until they let me. But during that semester, like I was able to take a lot of other art courses,
Yeah.
like drawing and like design and stuff like that, which was like really nice, especially for me because my background wasn't really in art. So it was like I was getting introduced to a lot of new things, and I feel like that helped me expand my own photography.
I'm sure.
Um, but I guess one thing I will say though, like at your schools, I mean, I guess you have such a wide range, but was photography considered like a fine art? Because
Depends what school.
for example, I had a professor when I went to FAU for design who like, he like had it out for me. Like, I mean, this is like all the students would say so for some reason.
Yeah.
But he pretty much said in the middle of the class, he was like, yeah, like photography. He pretty much called photography not an art.
Right.
Um, and that was like
Classic.
pretty discouraging to me because I was like, yo, what is this guy yapping about? Like, why
Did
would
you
you?
check his back? What did he do with his career? That's always got to check back into why they hating on something
I
so
mean, he
much.
basically like he almost failed me like by like the
Right.
hair and the grace of God and like four students that like picked me up and helped me get it like figured out for the final last
Right.
opportunity. I passed, but if it was up to him, I would have failed.
Yeah.
But anyways, like so I guess with your schools like Parsons, NYU, all that, they're a bit more current and with all
Depends
this.
what. Like I guess when I went to NYU, definitely NYU literally has like a photo department, like a whole floor. A Tisch is just dedicated to photography, which I always thought was very funny because the way the Tisch school is structured, every floor is a different major, and you could literally tell how well you're going to do in life based on what floor you were in, because if you went to the cinema floor, they had glass windows and like a receptionist and like cold water as you walk in. And the photography floor, same building, the photography floor literally has crooked floors, doors don't close all the way, the lights don't work half the time. You could really see how the difference of like the funding into
Yeah,
what
that's crazy.
department went into, which I remember being a very discouraging thing because I was curious. So I went from floor to floor and I was like, I am on the shittiest floor. Like, am I making the right life decision here? I'm 18, I'm like, is this what I want to be doing? But then when I went to and I took other things like within the world of creative advertising specifically, I learned how important photography is into the commercial world and how you can have your mark and create incredible images and get paid a lot of money for it within the commercial world. And that helped me kind of pull photography out of the fine art of it, quote unquote, and put it into the commercial world to give me more hope. And then on my other side of which is two different sides, there's the communication, which is like a huge school. And then there's like the photography one, which is kind of off the main campus. And it's like a little hallway with like 4 rooms. And that's like the photography department. Um, the professors there, they did definitely think it was fine art. A lot of them were fine art photographers. They were actually more like gallerist photography. And I felt weird being there because I was definitely more like portraiture, commercial, fashion-esque, while they were more fine art photography, like
Hmm.
the self-portraiture, the deep meanings behind every photo you create, like things that I wasn't per se doing. So although my level of photography was very high, they definitely were looking for you to give you an essay on every photo that you make. And I was more like, this is gorgeous, stunning. I love this image, love it as much as I do. Like that was kind of the difference between the schools and my experiences between them.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like I used to think a lot too, like something that I considered kind of a con for going to art school is like, well, you know, why would I like what would it help me to learn like a certain thing like the same way that so many people are taught it and it's kind of like the same thing and if it hasn't worked for the professor or whoever's learning it, like why would I want to implement that instead of just like like kind of having to figure it out my own way but having it be a bit more unique in that sense.
Yeah.
But then I also realized like when I applied to like the programs are different. If you go to like an art program at like a school that's meant for business in the middle of like nowhere compared to like SVA's program,
Mm-hmm.
like, I got along well with my photo professor when I was in college, my original college, but he was like you said, he wasn't really shooting the stuff that I shoot or could see myself
Right.
shooting or like, building a real photography career doing. But then when I looked at like the photographer professors who were going to teach the courses at SVA, they were like real, like,
Yeah.
fashion industry experienced, like
Yeah. Yeah.
professors whose work I actually was like, that damn, that's
Enjoying. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I
I
want
felt
to
that way.
this guy's techniques, like,
Yeah.
and I think that was a big difference, like it really makes sense. Like if somebody is gonna take that route, like it does make a big difference. Like in that sense,
No,
what
I definitely recommend, like the same way when you go to school before you like sign up for a course, you check on professors.com or whatever that website is, like how people experiences are. I think that was a big thing. Although I have like 4 years under me of undergrad work within like photography and commercial and business and that, I didn't learn half as much in those 4 years as I've learned doing my master's program in SVA, because they were the professionals in the industry. Like one of my professors has a whole agency who does like huge advertising stuff and does like huge campaigns, so he gave us an insight into that. Another one was a photographer who like he shot like Calvin Klein campaigns back in the day, like things that I'm definitely more interested in. So it was more, you saw more eye to eye, like a person who taught us about writing and like research, like she writes for Vogue and stuff like that. So like literally was more within the worlds that I was interested in. Therefore, I feel like I've learned a lot more compared to me being in my more fine art program at UM, where I felt like the assignments didn't really align with the things that I really want to create, you know?
Yeah, I think what you said there is like probably one of the biggest pros as to why somebody would be recommended art school if they can do it, like especially one of the good ones. Because I
Yeah.
mean, they like the connections, right? I
Yeah.
mean, like you're there with a bunch of people who I mean, even if they're not in the same program photography, but in the the similar fashion or other art
Mhm.
programs, like are people that are going to end up being in the high positions like of your
Right.
generation as you go on, and like you have that alumni whatever
Mhm.
connections to get more and do more work. And have you had those opportunities to work with people you went to school with or met during that process?
Yes and no. More within the people that were in my program for photography, we like assisted each other on jobs and projects. And like one of my classmates actually opened the studio down the street from me, and like she's doing really good. So like in that aspect, yeah, I wouldn't say I wave my alumni flag that much and like try to get connections in that kind of way. I think it's like it depends, you know. I definitely reached out to my professors a few times for advice and stuff after I graduated, like to review a portfolio or take a look at a website, and they make themselves very available to you because they believe in you and like you. And the guy that had the agency even tried to like pitch me for a job that he had after I
Yeah,
graduated.
really?
I didn't get it, but he did put me in one of his pitches for a job. He told me about it. He was like, "Hey, I like submitted you for something. Hopefully it works out. I'll let you know if it does." It didn't, but that was pretty cool that that happened. You know.
That's fire, yeah.
So yeah, you have definitely opportunities coming into it, but at the same time, my biggest lesson out of all of my school years in the reality that talent cannot be taught. And going through as many students as I've been around and all the schools and all this and all that, like you can be taught technique and be a good technical photographer, but for you to have a creative eye and for you to have a style and for you to have that, you know, that special something, no amount of school is going to teach you that. That's just something that has to come from you and your experiences. That was like my biggest thing. I went through all this, like I have my master's in this, and I can tell you for sure that none of these school years really um shaped my style or my talents, because as many people that walk through as all the programs that I did, I personally, from my personal opinions, they became more of technical photographers than more of like a recognizable stuff. Like when I see your work, I don't have to look at the name to know that it's your work, and I don't think that specific thing can be taught in school. You
Damn,
know,
really? I feel like I still have to like improve my
I
over.
mean, we all think that, you know.
No, it's crazy because I actually, I have a cousin. Like I don't like I haven't really like, talked to him, but he lives in New York and he's like a photographer. And I mean, I'd like to talk to him. We just like didn't really grow up together.
Right.
He went to Parsons and he
Mm.
did photography. And he's also, like you said, a very technical photographer. Like I follow him, I see the stuff he posts, but I've only probably met him like less than 4 times in my life. Like, and yeah, it's like I agree with that. Like sometimes I feel like, especially students, kind of get lost in the whole technical aspect versus
kind of expanding or breaking out of the curriculum per se. Like some people just do better with parameters.
Yeah.
And sometimes that is what kind of holds them back or allows some people to kind of like go ahead and go farther than others. Like
Hmm.
what were the, I mean, I guess for you, you also had a good well-rounded experience because you had so many different like programs and
Yeah.
schools. It wasn't just art. But what do you like, what was the typical student like in these art programs? Like were a lot of them just kind of like kids that didn't really have to worry about money that much, who they just like want, or they wanted to just like, make their parents happy and be like, yeah, I'll get a degree, like, and they just went with like photography, or they weren't that passionate about it, or other kids that are like, damn, they really love photography, and like, what was it like?
I think a combination. I think the people who got all the people that I know who got degrees for their parents did not do the stuff that they loved. They did the stuff that their parents wanted them to do. Because if a parent is paying $50,000 a year, they're not just going to let you go and do your, like your photography thing. I think the people in my programs throughout were either like kind of undecided and trying to figure out what it is that they wanted to do. But I guess as farther as I got, I guess like in my junior, senior year, you can definitely see the people who fell off the program over time and like changed their majors to other things, and the people that stayed. And the people that stayed are definitely either people who really believe in their work and have like a unique voice and they like want to create doing so, or at least they think so. Others are people who don't have to worry about it and probably have like there was like a one student that were like, oh yeah, like my parents have a company and they just gonna have me run social media, so like I have to learn all these skills when I graduate so I can like run their social media, which is also fair, like good for you. um and yeah, a lot of people are just I will say only like maybe three people out of all the programs I've been through are actual like working photographers in the industry right now. And I've been through a lot of programs and I've been through a lot of different people, and
Only
only,
three?
oh, I think only three, yeah. And
Damn,
the
that's
other ones, they're like making work, but on the side, or like I have friend, like not a lot of them are freelancers, I would say. Like a few of them are working under companies. Like I have a friend who graduated my master's program with me, and she's working in house for a fashion brand doing e-com, and that's her job, and like she loves it, and like that's her main thing. And then I have a couple friends who are like freelance working full time doing this thing.
that's pretty crazy, dude. Like
Yeah.
called. I mean, I ask too because I know, especially for parents. I mean, all types of parents. A lot of times, kind of the art world is a bit foreign, but especially
Yeah.
immigrant parents who may
Yeah.
not understand. Like, I mean, a lot of people don't understand, like I said, the kind of like what you can do with art or what a real photography career is like. Like, it's not just like shooting birthday parties and making $100 here and there. Like, you can actually really scale it much bigger than that.
Hmm.
Uh, but like I remember when I was leaving school for the first and second time, like I had issues with certain family members and stuff where it was like, oh, like how about you just like at least stay in school and like get a degree in photography, but like at least get the degree because they think it's like you need a degree to succeed or whatever.
Right.
But I don't know about you, but like I've never been asked for a photography
Never.
on any job ever.
Never.
Uh,
Never. I had never ever in my life has anybody asked me a degree. They only look at your portfolio. They don't care about your degree. Then, like in our world, it does not matter.
Yeah, 1,000%. Like, and I would say, and then because I dropped out and I had these experiences and I left, and then I was able to, just start, well, first interning at this modeling agency and then assisting a really big photographer for a little while. Like, while my friends were still in school, I mean, for whatever they were studying, and I was doing this, by the time they got out, like I already had like, a leg or two up on them on a good
Yeah.
head start in my career and no debt. You know what I mean? Where and and like you said, like the portfolio is really more like the degree in this type of job, this type of field, much more important than anything. I mean, you can graduate with a degree at SCAD, which is I guess is like the Harvard
Yeah.
of
Art schools. Yeah.
or like RISD or whatever, and it's not the same as you having a Harvard degree and going to like presenting it to a different.
Right.
It's all about the portfolio.
I have friends who also graduated from SCAD, and they're not really doing anything about it either, So
Yeah, touche,
yeah.
yeah. It's kind of crazy, and like I said, I mean, a big thing of it, even the whole debt thing, like
Mm.
I like my friends, they have a ton of debt. Like like I said, like not only was I able to get a big head start, where by the time I was already knew and was in my industry, like my friends were just leaving school for the first time, or I
Yeah.
even had a friend who graduated with his whole degree, appealing to his parents for business, for him to work for like a year or two, and then to be like, yo, like never in my life again am I going to do business. I can't stand this. It's making me
Yeah.
miserable. To then go back and reapply and go into like acting school, which is
Yeah.
great. Now he's doing what he loves, but like there was some time there you could have gotten ahead up.
Mhm.
So I guess that's a big point to consider too, especially if like there's a parent watching the video that the kid sent this too, like they need to be forced to go to college. Like it could just be a waste of money.
Yeah.
It could be more of an investment to take that money and put it into building your skill and your portfolio.
Right. I 100% agree. I think I was just talking about it the other day that I got my master's for one reason. And it's because when I retire or whatever it might be, I really want to teach. I want to be a professor. So like I
Mhm.
want to go back and teach in a school, if it's a high school, college, whatever it might be. So that is my reason, because for that you do need the credentials. You need
Yeah.
to have the degree to be able to teach. And I'm very passionate about teaching. So I always thought that's something that I wanted to do. Therefore, I decided to get it over with, get the degree, and now built the credentials to make me credible enough that in 20 plus years I'll be able to like teach and be that person. I think if you're not planning to do that as a person who has a degree, you don't need it. You really don't, especially when it comes to like, nobody has ever asked me for my degree. My degree is the most irrelevant thing about me. I think people that should go to school are one of two people. You're very unsure and you like just want to experiment and figure it out. And like, yeah, because like some people who studied photography figured out they wanted film and switched to film school. And you know what you need? Film school. You don't per se. Photography is a little easier to get away with, but with film industry, I think specifically they do look into that, and you do need to learn a lot of technicalities. Film is a lot about technicality, where I feel like in photography you can get away with less technicality. And two is, if you're a person who struggles to self-assign, if you're a person who struggles to do your own research, if you're a person who doesn't really know where to start, it's a good place to go and do those things. I will say one thing that especially my master's program taught me is how to do proper research and how to create meaningful longevity projects, because we can all have one offshoots and like little commercial this, commercial that, but they're like really made you think about what is your life work looks like, something that you will always create for as long as X, Y, and Z. And that's what I did my whole time doing the program. All I did is research based on what it is that I'm so passionate about that I would want to maybe potentially be my signature and create for the rest of my life, you know? So when it comes to that kind of like stuff, I think it's very important. I think in other ways, art school is very discouraging. Like you had the experience, if you have a bad professor that tells you that that's not an art form, you'll never make it, this doesn't, like, it could be very discouraging. Also, you spend all of your years looking at other people's work. All you do for years and years, every single thing you do every week is research this photographer, look into this person, watch this documentary, look at this book. You're consistently looking at other people's work, and you find yourself in a place where like, well, what am I going to do that's going to be different, that's going to change, that's going to make me stand out? The reality is, in our industries, the competition feels infinite. There's so many people out there, so much incredible work, so many incredible styles. You kind of start to realize that nothing is really original. Everything has been created in one form or another. It's just haven't been in front of this audience or haven't seen the light of day in this kind of context. So I think it's also discouraging in a way of like, I found myself sometimes being like, but what is little me gonna give to the world within this photo commercial fashion world that hasn't been done already, you know? So I feel like there's like a little frustrating wall that you hit being in school. While I do think research is extremely important, and knowing your history about photography what is extremely important, but I feel like sometimes the way that school teaches it is in the way of like, there were the greats, here are the greats, here's the list of the greats, you'll never be the greats, but here's a list of them, study them, know them, learn everything about them, their style, what they do, how they did it. No, you'll never reach the greats, but just know about them, you know? So sometimes that kind of mentality can mess with you a little bit as well. So I think it's all about what kind of person you are. If you're a naturally very curious person and a very motivated, hands-on person, do that. Don't go to school. Just go and self-assign and look at photos and recreate and create different things. I also was talking about how I would have preferred, instead of going to school, finding photographers to assist, finding little like seminars that they do, like 3-day seminars with like big photographers, or like 1-day seminar or little art residencies. They cost money, but way less than a college is ever going to cost you, and you will learn way more in those 3 days or that 1 day with that favorite photographer of yours, or you will learn a billion more assisting somebody than you'll ever be sitting in a classroom. And that is 100% true. I've learned the most assisting. I've learned the most looking into like my favorite photographers, looking at videos of seminars. I learned the most by being like, oh yeah, I saw that, but let me go and do it myself, you know? And that you can get from YouTube nowadays. So like, you really don't have to go and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to make yourself something.
I agree. Like at the most I mean, it does take a lot of self-discipline.
Yeah.
And I mean, even if like that, you'll have to learn that at some point regardless.
Yeah.
But what's it called? Yeah, I mean, for me, like the biggest growth, like moments of growth, have been while I'm on the field or in situations where it's kind of like I have to figure it out,
Figure it
or
out. Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's all it is. Some people get scared and they're like, nah, I'm not gonna do it because I don't know how to do it, or I can't do that or whatever. But it's like, for me, it's been more about like, I'll never say I can't do it. I just gotta, I'll figure it out. And
Figure it out. Mm-hmm.
it always like figures itself out, and then I leave with like a much higher acquired, skill, knowledge for next time. But yeah, I think the field is much more of yo, do you hear that? Or is that just me?
What are you
I
hearing?
don't maybe I'm tripping. I don't even know what I'm hearing right now, but what's it called? Do you hear that? Is there an echo?
Oh, somebody's drilling in the apartment next to me.
Oh,
If that's what you're hearing.
okay. I just want to make sure it wasn't like a robotic like echo or something.
No. Somebody's drilling. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. You're good. But what was I talking about? About the field, right?
The field. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not for sure. Like the field experience has been where I've grown the most, and I think maybe some things, maybe like maybe there's been other things that I've had to make mistakes along the way to learn because I didn't go to school or whatever.
Yeah.
But all in all, I think that still at the end of the day, I think me not going to school gave me like a more unique approach to things and an eye for things. I still like to learn things the right way to do it. I like, look online and stuff, and
Yeah.
YouTube is a great tool, but then I kind of take it from there and do it my own way,
Do your own.
like it's
Yeah.
not math where it's like there's one way to do it. I mean, even in math, there's different ways to do it,
Right.
but yeah, it's interesting. Like one thing that I don't know too much about. I don't know a lot of people who've done masters in photography. Like what was a master's program like compared to the bachelor's program?
Well, a couple things. First, I wanted to touch on like the self-learning thing. Like, I think if you have passion about something, you're gonna force yourself to learn about it. Even throughout my whole entire years of doing school, I was already so interested in so many things that I already taught myself, and then I would come to school and I would be like, oh yeah, I already know this because I already, I watched the YouTube videos, I tested it out, I tried it out, whatever. I was also already, while in school, I was already shooting on the side, so I kind of had that thing of like, okay, I saw this, let me put it into practice, and then I go to school and learn about it a little more. Great, to the point that even in my undergrad at UM, they had one of the design classes, they had me teach Premiere because the teacher was like, I'm not really sure, but you do video, so you teach Premiere. So I literally sat and like taught for 2 sessions. I
Yeah.
taught like Adobe Premiere,
Should've
which
put you
was
in the
hilarious because I'm like, I'm paying you to teach me. How am I sitting here and teaching these people? But for the big difference from masters, which I wish that you did not need undergrad to get into masters, because I would skip all of that. I would like skip all of that and just do the 1 to 2 year programs of masters, because I've learned way more in that than I did in anything else. Because there they really make you, first it's very intimate. Most of the master programs are very small, so like you get very much like a lot of personal attention compared to like a big school like so you get more of a one-on-one, and they really sit with you. You feel like I feel like I was like in phototherapy for like the whole time I was doing my masters, because they really were trying to dig into what it is, what are you bringing to the table, basically. Because like if you're wasting your time, they'll tell you, basically, you know what I mean, being like, hey, like maybe you're not the best at this, and that's okay, but you can either keep going and do better, but we are suggesting that maybe you'll do something else. Which we had one student in our master's program that they just weren't sure what to do. They got accepted into the program, and they weren't the best, and they kind of knew it, and everybody kind of knew it, and I think they had a very real conversation with them. So when they got out of the program, they kind of just like moved on with something else,
Well, you know
which is
how like
also fair.
you know how like in medicine when they do masters or the next level programs, a lot of it's kind of like hands-on, like going in operating rooms or stuff like that,
Yeah,
or shadowing physicians. Like, was masters like more like a lot more studio, a lot more like
it was just
equipment?
assignments. It was just assignments,
Or just shooting?
literally just assignments. Everything was an assignment. Our lectures were short, but everything was assignment based. They're like, okay, we talked about this, now go create something. Sometimes within the class, they'll be like, you have an hour, go figure something out. Like it was very hands on. We had a lot of assignment, a lot of shooting.
And
Every
you
week
guys
I had to do like 4 shoots. Huh?
and you guys had access to, like, I imagine,
Yeah.
a lot of like really great gear, right?
Yeah, you had access. Actually, while going to school there, I was also working for the school, so I was working as the gear person. So anytime somebody had to rent something, I was the person to like do all the check in, check
Did
outs. So,
you pay to rent it out, or it's just
huh?
kind of you had to pay to rent it out, or it was like a library card where
No,
you just
no, it's like a library. You're paying for the school, so the school you pay with access. Some of the best things to check out I've ever experienced were in NYU. Everything under the sun they have. Like you think it, they have it, which was pretty cool. You could really, that's the main benefit, is that you can
yeah.
get your hands on any equipment, any pro photos, any lenses, any tripods, any diffusers, this, you have access to everything for free, and you can do and create like that. And low key, even me, when I had paid shoots, I would charge an equipment fee but rent from the school for free, and like use that equipment to create the stuff I wanted to create. And the access to that is pretty awesome because you get to learn that. And if you do go out there and assist, you kind of played around with all that equipment, so you can feel more confident about tethering, you can feel more confident about lighting, diffusions, bouncing, everything, literally everything. So that's, I guess, the best part about going to a school. You have access to those things and to learn them.
No, I agree. If anything, whenever I talk to people about this, like I would say the biggest pro, other than the connections, is like the access to the gear.
Yeah.
Because like if anything, that's something that I feel like I lacked at the beginning of my career a bit, because I didn't take advantage of that at the school I was at before, and
Yeah.
I think their gear was a bit outdated too. It wasn't like
Fair.
the range of that. It was very business, directed school, and then like one thing I wish I would have done earlier was just buy like a cheap strobe and practice with it. But I also was like couch hopping a lot and bouncing around in New York, so I wouldn't have had
Yeah.
where to put it. But a lot of the stuff, like when I started assisting that photographer I was working with, he kept bringing me back, but we didn't really like we didn't really have a good time where we could just sit down and have the access to the gear for him to like teach me how to do something. Like if I learn it once, all right, I'll get it. But like we were usually on set, so there wasn't really that time to just learn
Right.
it. and I didn't have it at
Just
home.
do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
down or building up stands and stuff. Like I just wouldn't know how to do it sometimes. And he just would expect me to know every single time. I'm like, bro, like how am I supposed to learn? Like you still haven't showed me and I don't have it at home. Like
Right.
I did learn a lot, but like it would have fast tracked a little bit if I would have had more hands on to that equipment. But again, you could bypass that by just buying some cheap stuff at home,
Yeah.
or renting out cheap studios, or like you
Yeah.
said, going into one of these master courses or like workshops with like a photographer you like, or something of that sorts. But yeah, that was
Yeah.
my yeah.
No, I agree. I think that's also like a thing, like assisting photographers and building those kind of relationships is important. I'm working on that myself. Like I'm a working photographer and I still love assisting and stuff because you always learn. It's an endless amount of learning. Like one thing that an NYU that I remember that stuck to me is the professor was like, you could be a master of lighting and still know nothing about lighting because lighting could be manipulated and used in so many ways. It's infinite. So although you might be a working photographer the person was like, I've been doing this for 50 years and like I still can learn things. There is still so many things for me to learn. So I think it's like part of our industry is the fact that it's just like ongoing learning field. And uh when it comes to doing the seminars and stuff like that, and like even like most of these colleges like offer one-off sessions, and like they offer like little short courses. SVA has a lot of like beginner
Yeah,
photography
great.
lighting. Like you can
Yeah.
take them for a weekend, or even some of them are like literally like 4 hour long stuff. Some of them are like a whole 6 weeks. Like there's a lot of little things you can take that you can probably learn more from. Also, like reaching out to photographers on Instagram. I get emails and DMs all the time. People who just graduated college who want to assist me and learn from me. Now, I feel weird about it because I don't think I'm anywhere near my career where I can be like, oh, yeah, come intern for me. You know what I mean? Like, I don't feel comfortable doing that. But I do have a lot of people reach out to me straight out of school who just want to learn. They really don't care what it is. They just want to learn what it's like to be in a hands on environment, on a small set, on a big set. What does a digital session looks like versus a on-set commercial shoot or whatever it might be? And I feel like the people who are curious in that kind of way will make it farther, because again, as being on hands is like really key to like understanding.
They taught you a lot of lighting setups and techniques and like a lot of lighting stuff while you were in school, or is it
And then
something?
in NYU, yes. And NYU, they did teach us a lot of stuff, but not really any other program. Because in NYU, they literally make you take lighting 1, lighting 2, lighting 3. There's like different, like their curriculum is very different. But that's the only school that I went to out of all my schools that really was teaching lighting in that kind of
I
way.
was always a bit like melancholic because the first school that I went to, I right when I left, I missed the lighting course that what I would have taken, and then the second school I missed the art history course, which I would have enjoyed.
I love
But
the art. That was my favorite part about school is the art history. I had to
yeah,
take art history 1, 2, and 3, and I loved it all.
yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize the importance of art and history.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't realize until I went to Florence. Like the heart of the art
Hmm.
Renaissance, all that.
Yeah.
But, dude, so it's pretty interesting though, because a lot of your stuff is like natural lit, right? You
Yeah.
do more natural lighting than,
Predominantly.
and so your lighting techniques, do you ever use them, the ones you picked up while in school, or not as
Um,
much?
Not as much. I've always been a natural light photographer, like since literally high school. I definitely preferred it. I think everything I learned in studio helps me because I do have a lot of gigs that I get that they want studio things. But I think for my personal stuff, uh, I prefer natural. I still use reflectors and stuff. Sometimes a light pop, like a strobe outside and stuff like that, or a flash. Like those kind of how to direct light and control light is something I definitely learned and then implemented. If sometimes the sun is too harsh, how to block it off and stuff like that. So, but that's literally what a 30-minute class, like that's not a fucking 6-year program, to learn how to do any of those things. But again, I definitely just trial and error, trial and error, trial and error is all that really ever
There's
works,
a lot of
you know?
basic courses in there too. Like really like the intro course I took in college was like very like, you know, you could have covered that in like an hour long YouTube video. You know what I
I
mean? Like
literally a YouTube video could have been
very
enough. I
basic.
didn't have to take a whole semester of it. Yeah.
Like you said though, the film course I did was cool though, because I was very hands on, like developing like the room, like
Yeah.
printing all that stuff.
No,
And
that I love.
yeah. And like my last question for you, would you do it all over again?
I don't know. Yes, because of what like my vision for my life and how I want to retire and be a professor because it's necessary.
Mhm.
No, if that wasn't my vision. If my vision was just to be a photographer for the rest of my life and like I just want to like do one-off projects, sign to an agency, whatever it might be, I wouldn't because I think that when you're passionate about it, you're gonna figure it out. You know what I mean? And like the founders of photography and stuff like that, they just figured it out and they still created some of the most iconic work that we see today. So I think if you're passionate and you have an eye, uh, it just will come naturally. And there's the YouTube and all these other seminars and resources. I would have preferred to intern. I would have preferred to take one-off sessions and like self-assign, or even you can have a mentor, which a lot of like younger photographers do now. They have a mentor photographer who kind of walks them through that and assigns them and stuff like that. I think there's way more benefit to that than going to school. Also, they will never ever ask you for your diploma ever unless you're trying to be a professor. They will never ask you. I've never in one job has ever been asked for what is your education level.
Yeah.
So if you can figure out a way, there's actually portfolio classes. SVA offers portfolio classes, so you can take a 5-week course for portfolio where they help you build your portfolio. That is all you need. If you build a strong portfolio, they'll never ask you for that piece of paper. So for me, I would say if that was the way I wanted to live, then no, I would not do it all over again.
Dude, SVA offers a lot of great courses, eh? I'm
Yeah.
like, man, like this isn't a promotional video, but
Yeah, I know. Like
like,
sponsored by SBA.
somebody signs up, you might catch me in your class because
Right.
they even have classes for like the business side of photography
Yeah.
and like or like the organization of files side of photography. Like
Yeah.
the only
They
reason
do.
I haven't signed up at right now, like because I'm a lot busier now. So
Yeah.
like I wanted to sign up the past 2 semesters, but you know, it was like I travel a lot and I'm out of
Right.
town. And like you have to and I like the in-person ones more.
Yeah.
So it's like, damn, you know, and I can't commit to being here for that whole time. But otherwise,
I
I
mean,
would have.
you can miss a few. It's not gonna change your life or
Well,
anything like
I don't want to miss it. You know,
that.
I
I
want.
feel you. I feel you.
But you know, yeah. If not, I would have been like in a few of them by now.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude. I think this was a great conversation that I think could really help a lot of people.
Yeah.
So especially people who are kind of coming out of high school on the cusp of, you know, deciding what route they want to take, or maybe even their parents watch this video, or you know, whatever it may be. But maybe if anybody else has any questions or found this helpful, they can let us know in the comments
Yeah.
and all that type of stuff. But thank you very much for coming on today,
Thank
dude.
you for having me.
And like I said, I'll be linking your stuff in the description so everybody can check it out and show love on the Instagram and all that stuff. And you've been working on your YouTube channel
I
as
have.
well. Okay? So I'll be
Yes.
doing that too, so people can look at your work there and your information that you can give out too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll see you. I'll see you shortly.
Nice to
Have
you.
a have a nice day, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.
Ciao.
All right.